Have you ever jacked in? Have you ever wire tripped? No? A virgin brain. Well, we're gonna start you off right.
Welcome to Random Movie Reviews. I'm Nathan, and today I'll be talking about Strange Days. So we are nearly done with the holiday season, except we have one more holiday left, and that is New Year's Eve. And since I spent all of this month talking about alternative Christmas movies, I figured why not do one more final review for this month with an alternative New Year's Eve movie, and that is Strange Days, a movie that I watched for the first time last year, but it was a movie that I was made aware of for quite some time. A good buddy of mine, his dad owned this movie on DVD. I remember looking through his collection and being drawn to this DVD of Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes on it. I'm like, oh, I like Ralph Fiennes. And I was like, I've never heard of this movie. And he's like, dude, that movie is amazing. He's like, it's right up your alley too, which he was right. But it was a movie that I put on my watch list, but I just never really got around to watching it. And then last year, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to watch this movie. And what ended up making me want to watch the movie was the realization that I'd only really seen one Kathryn Bigelow movie up until that point. Kathryn Bigelow being the director of this film. She's probably more well known for her more recent output of movies with like The Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, Detroit, kind of much more serious, like historical grounded, very intense, epic kind of movies. But she kind of got her start with more genre films. Near Dark, one of her earliest movies, which is a movie that I reviewed on this channel. So for anyone interested, I'll put it in the description below. Of course, my favorite movie of hers is Point Break, which is the only movie that I watch of Kathryn Bigelow for a long time. I haven't seen The Hurt Locker or Zero Dark 30. I'll probably get around to watching those movies, but I just never watched them. Point Break, on the other hand, is a movie that I love a weird amount. Low-key obsessed with, actually, and I definitely plan on doing a very in-depth review of that film on this channel because I have a lot to say about my love for Point Break. But I was like, I should check out some of her earlier stuff, and then I'll move on to her later stuff, and Strange Days was one of those movies she did that's in the first half of her career, and I was like, well, let's give it a shot, and I was pretty blown away. I'm a big fan of science fiction noir films, cyberpunk in general, and there really isn't that many cyberpunk movies. Of course, there's Blade Runner. There's my favorite, Blade Runner 2049, which, yes, I think is even better than the first Blade Runner, but that will be a video for another time. There's, of course, The Matrix, another one of my all-time favorite movies, which took influence from animes and mangas like Akira, and then Ghost in the Shell being another incredible cyberpunk anime film. But there's only really a handful of really good cyberpunk stuff out there, and so I was excited to watch this movie, and I fell in love with it. It was one of those movies where I watched it the first time, and I'm like, oh, this movie's perfect, it's amazing, it's a masterpiece. I watched it just recently to do this review. I still love the movie, I still think it's fantastic. It's not quite as perfect as I was led to believe on my first viewing. It was just one of those experiences where I was so excited to watch this movie, and it's always exciting discovering a hidden gem movie that's really awesome that not a lot of people know about, because that means you get to talk about it, you get to recommend it. It's not a perfect movie, and I'll get into kind of the flaws I have with the film, but for the most part, this movie is a science fiction fan's dream. And it is a film that is still very much underseen. It's a movie that is not easy to track down and find. Obviously, there are ways to watch it that are unconventional. One of those ways would be having a region-free Blu-ray player and buying the Blu-ray version of this film that's only available on UK Blu-rays or Region B. It's not streaming anywhere. I don't think you can even order this movie or rent it on Amazon or Fandango at home, which is crazy. So it's kind of a hard movie to find. Totally deserves the 4K treatment because visually it's quite incredible. But before I get too deep into the woods and going nuts over this movie that I love very much, because this movie's so underseen, I figured I should give a brief plot synopsis that is non-spoilery. There might be some mild spoilers here and there, but I don't reveal anything too much. It's just setting up what this movie's about. So let's get into it. In the alternative dystopian year of 1999, former disgraced ex-LAPD officer Lenny Nero is a renowned black marketer who specializes in selling squid, or superconducting quantum interference devices. Try saying that 10 times fast. An illegal electronic device that records memories and physical sensations directly from the wearer's cerebral cortex onto a mini disc-like storage device. Lenny and his bodyguard Mace, played by Angela Bassett, get caught up in a conspiracy after Lenny finds a squid disc that shows the rape and murder of his friend Iris, a prostitute who was formerly best friends with Lenny's ex-girlfriend Faith, whom Lenny is still in love with. The mystery of Iris's death leads both Lenny and Mace to discover another squid disc that shows the murder of civil rights activist and hip-hop artist Jericho 1, who was gunned down unjustifiably by the LAPD. The police cover-up and murder of Iris all culminates to an epic showdown on New Year's Eve 1999, the turn of the millennium. So there's a lot to go over with this movie. Obviously, like any good mystery film, because that's what this movie is first and foremost, it is a sci-fi noir mystery. There's a lot of turning pieces. There's a lot of unexpected twists and turns, and that keeps the movie obviously engaging and on the edge of your seat. The performances all across the board are fantastic. You got Ralph Fiennes, who's just amazing in everything, honestly. He's one of my favorite actors, and he always delivers, no matter what movie he's in. He's terrific in this movie. Angela Bassett, for me, kind of ends up stealing the show as Mace. She's such an awesome, badass character, and her and Lenny kind of have a romantic chemistry that we don't really see fully develop until we get to the end of this movie, which I won't spoil, but they have amazing chemistry, and you end up really caring about both of these characters, and you want to see them get out of this alive, and it makes the movie that much more entertaining and investing because you actually care about the characters. You got Juliette Lewis in this movie, who I just love also in pretty much any movie, and she's awesome in this. You got Tom Sizemore, who is a terrific character actor. So you got a full-blown fantastic cast. You got Kathryn Bigelow's remarkable direction. I mean, I know because of the movie Point Break that she is one of the best action filmmakers. I mean, Point Break, you can have nitpicks with in terms of its really ridiculous plot and some hilariously over-the-top dialogue. But in terms of the visuals of that movie, they are absolutely outstanding, and the action in that movie has aged beautifully. And I can say the same thing about Strange Days. So there's a lot of POV shots in this movie because Kathryn Bigelow wanted to show the audience the point of view perspective of somebody using squid. The opening of the movie is a point of view of a squid wearer doing a bank robbery. And then we find out this is Ralph Fiennes testing out this product before he sells it. And it also establishes that he doesn't deal in what he calls blackjack cards or these snuff squid tapes. That's not his bag. He wants to do something outside of that. It should be noted that this film was co-written by James Cameron, because at the time Kathryn Bigelow and James Cameron were dating. He came up with the concept of this movie. He gets the story credit, and he co-wrote the script. The other writer of the script is a man named Jay Cox, who is primarily known for working with Martin Scorsese. There is an element of this script that was completely added in by Jay Cox due to the Rodney King riots that happened in LA. Most people should be aware of that story by now. It was a pretty significant event in our history, in American history. And of course, watching this movie with the themes of police brutality and social injustice, watching this movie in a post-2020 world, it's impossible not to think about George Floyd too. So there's a lot of elements in this movie that are very relevant or very timely in terms of some of the themes it explores. But that's not all that this movie explores. It's a big part of it. There's that whole aspect of the movie of these two cops, one of which is played by Vincent D'Onofrio, aka Private Pile. It's the driving force behind the movie in terms of the direct plot is Angela Bassett's character Mace wants to expose this tape, wants the public to react to it, even though she knows that it'll most likely inspire a riot. But it's the truth about what happened to this activist / hip hop artist by the name of Jericho 1. His death was a mystery, and then they stumble upon the squid tape that's directly linked to the murder of Ralph Fiennes' friend. And so that's the driving force behind the movie. And so obviously there are themes that touch upon race and stuff like that, because it was relevant around the time the film was made because of those riots in LA, and it's unfortunately it's still relevant now. But the other big theme regarding this movie is that of memories. Ray Fiennes' character is still in love with his ex-girlfriend Faith, played by Juliette Lewis, and so he keeps reliving his memories with her that he recorded with the squid technology over and over again. And a big commentary in this movie is how memories are meant to fade. That's why they're designed that way. A line that Angela Bassett actually says in this movie.
Memories were meant to fade, Lenny. They're designed that way for a reason.
And it comments on how people who are stuck in the past and just want to relive in the past, they never progress in the future. And so that kind of ties in with the setting of the movie, which takes place, most of the movie takes place near New Year's Eve, and then the final act takes place on New Year's Eve. And one of the big things that's talked about when it comes to New Year's Eve is resolutions, and how can we progress as our better selves in the future. New Year's resolutions, what can we do? And so the theme of memories and the character arc of Lenny in particular goes perfectly with, wanting to become your better self for a new year, and, wanting to progress as a person, as an individual, as a human being. And so that makes that gives the movie a lot of heart. And then on top of that, you just have these incredibly well directed action suspense sequences. Like I said, the movie opens up with a bank robbery that is just unbelievably filmed. I would love to get like behind the scene clips of how they were able to film that in 1995. Because, obviously now you would just use a GoPro or and stuff like that. But it's like, how do you do that with a giant camera? I would just love to know how they filmed it, because it looks amazing. It's a movie that's simultaneously ahead of its time and also very much of its time. Meaning, this is one of the most 90s movies ever. And I guess we can kind of go into the flaws I have with the film, because that's kind of part of it. I love the fact that this movie is super 90s. I don't really know why, but I have an affinity for the 90s. There's just a lot of music in movies and things happening at that time that I find interesting, that I'm a big fan of. And so the fact that a lot of this movie looks like a futuristic Nine Inch Nails music video, I think is pretty cool. But it is one of the aspects that kind of holds the movie back from being a, quote, timeless masterpiece a la Blade Runner, is that it looks super 90s. And, for people who may not have an affinity for that era, who might find it kind of goofy, I mean, this movie, like I said, it's as 90s as you can get. But for the most part, I really like the look of this movie, even if it does look somewhat dated, because I think the action sequences are super well filmed. I think the movie is tightly paced, but that also goes into the other minor complaint I have with the film, in that this is a movie that's nearly 2.5 hours long, and you do start to feel the runtime a little bit, especially once we get to the third act of the movie. And part of that is because the movie takes a really long time to set up. Like, it's almost an hour into the movie until we get the main plot of the movie going, with Lenny discovering the squid tape. Before that point, it's establishing our character, it's establishing the world and the setting. It just didn't need to take an hour to do that. I think this movie could have very easily been edited down to a tight 2-hour runtime, and it would have felt even more exhilarating and fast-paced as a result. So what I mentioned before, those are more nitpicks. My one kind of major flaw, without getting too much into spoilery territory, is we get an exposition dump by the person who is responsible for Iris's murder, which I won't reveal because I want that to be non-spoilery. The exposition dump he gives is he's explaining to our character and the audience the motivation behind why he did what he did. And the movie needed to do that because it didn't do a very good job of kind of, giving enough clues to the viewer to try to piece that together themselves. So they had this big kind of clunky exposition dump with the cliche of the bad guy just holding our hero hostage instead of just shooting him immediately and ending it right there. And so that kind of is like, it's a little nick on the movie in terms of it being a perfect film. It's not perfect. Most movies aren't even perfect. So those are my flaws with the movie. Overall, I think the film is incredible. I mean, really, it is so unique. So much of it has aged very well, especially in terms of Kathryn Bigelow's direction, which is just outstanding. The performances are amazing. If you're a fan of 90s kind of grunge, industrial, trip hop kind of music, which I am, you're going to love this movie. So anyway, guys, that's my thoughts on Strange Days. I absolutely love this movie, but I want to hear your thoughts. For the people who've seen this movie, let me know what you think in the comments below. And for people who are interested in cyberpunk, science fiction, noir films, list a bunch of recommendations in the comments for me and everybody else to check out. And as always, thank you guys for watching.